President Donald Trump signed an executive order imposing new tariffs on dozens of countries, delaying the deadline by a week.
The death toll from a Russian strike on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv overnight on Thursday has risen to 31 people, including 5 children.
Dozens of residents were evacuated from 2 Portuguese villages as wildfires injured at least 19 people. United States President Donald Trump signed an executive order imposing new tariffs on dozens of countries. These will go into effect in 7 days, delaying the deadline by a week. It comes as other countries have had the opportunity to negotiate tariff prices up until Trump's self-imposed deadline of August 1st. The Republican president had initially set a minimum 10% tariff on every country and additional levies on dozens who he deemed the worst offenders. Some trade partners were able to negotiate an agreement or even reach tariff-reducing deals. For example, the US President and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen agreed on a 15% tariff rate for EU exports.
Thank you.
Other countries, however, were unable to negotiate, injecting them with a new dose of uncertainty. And for some, such as Canada, Switzerland, and Brazil, higher tariffs than initially promised were put into place.
The death toll from a Russian strike in Kyiv on Thursday has risen to 31 people, including 5 children. Russia targeted at least 27 districts in the Ukrainian capital, collapsing part of a 9-story building, damaging schools, a kindergarten, and a higher education facility. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the attack vile and said it demonstrated the need for increased pressure on Russia. Russia has continued to strike Ukraine on Thursday with a direct hit on a 5-story building in central Kramatorsk. 1 person died and 11 were injured, according to local officials. An 18-year-old girl was among those wounded. Russia has continued its attacks on Ukraine despite US President Donald Trump expressing disappointment with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Trump has shortened a previous deadline of 50 days for Putin to agree to a truce to 10 to 12 days. He has threatened to impose further sanctions on Russia should Putin fail to agree to at least a temporary ceasefire agreement.
Ukraine's parliament overwhelmingly approved a bill on Thursday that restores the independence of 2 of the country's key anti-corruption watchdogs. It reverses a contentious move last week that curbed their power and sparked protests. President Volodymyr Zelensky, who signed the draft into law, said it was important that the government listens to public opinion. Last week's measure to place the watchdogs under the oversight of the Prosecutor General prompted an outcry from Ukrainians, the EU, and international rights groups. It raised fears that the government could meddle in investigations and potentially shield its supporters from scrutiny. Zelensky said he had taken note of the protests and decided to present a new bill to Parliament, underscoring that the Prosecutor General and his deputies cannot give orders to anti-graft agencies or interfere in their work.
Dozens of residents were evacuated from 2 Portuguese villages as wildfires injured at least 19 people. Over 1,800 firefighters have been deployed nationwide.
Há bocado estava mais calmo, mas agora isto de repente piorou muito.
Os seus pais tiveram que sair já?
Já mandaram sair agora a GNR.
While waiting for help, local residents tried containing the blaze themselves.
Já andamos aqui desde ontem aqui a vigiar. Ele não chegou aqui porque andava aqui perto também. Mas hoje parece que temos de atacar, senão ele acaba por queimar tudo.
The blaze in Ponte da Barca remains the most concerning hotspot, with dozens of people being evacuated from their homes in rural areas of Sobredo and Paradela. And in Aruca, the fire has since been contained, but the blaze burned over 4,500 hectares of forest. Local weather institutions have warned for a severe hot weather episode expected to last until next week, with temperatures forecast ranging from 36 to 44 degrees Celsius.
Portugal's government says it will consult the country's main political parties and president about potential recognition of a Palestinian state. The announcement from Lisbon comes after a series of diplomatic switches regarding Palestine's status. French President Emmanuel Macron said last week that his country plans to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September, making it the first major Western country to do so. Around 144 of the UN's 193 member states recognize Palestine as a state, but only a handful of the 27 European Union member countries do, including Spain, Sweden, and Ireland. Macron's announcement was followed by the UK, Canada, and Malta, but under certain conditions. It comes amid rising global outrage over the way Israel is fighting the war against Hamas in Gaza and its months-long blockade of aid that UN agencies say has left Gaza's population on the brink of famine. The act of recognition under a two-state solution involves acknowledging the sovereignty and independence of Palestine within its pre-1967 Middle East war borders. This includes the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. The European Court of Justice has sided with an Italian court that questioned the government's designation of Bangladesh as a safe country of origin. The label would allow deportations and detentions of asylum seekers while their application is under review. The case was sparked when two Bangladeshi nationals who were rescued at sea by Italian authorities were transferred to Albania, where Italy has built 2 offshore processing centers. The court ruled that a country cannot be labeled safe if it's not safe for specific vulnerable groups, and the designation must be backed by clear, accessible evidence. Italy's government hit back at the ruling, claiming the decision weakens Rome's ability to fight illegal immigration and protect borders. But the ruling may only have a short-term impact. An EU regulation set to take effect in June 2026 or sooner will allow governments to declare countries safe with certain exceptions, aligning more closely with Italy's approach.
Lithuania's Prime Minister Gintautas Paluckas stepped down on Thursday after an investigation into his business dealings and protests in the Baltic nation against him. Paluckas has been in government since late last year as the head of the centre-left Social Democrats in a 3-party coalition. His entire cabinet is now expected to also resign, potentially leaving the country without an effective government. New coalition talks are expected soon. The former leader has faced multiple scandals over his business dealings. An investigation revealed he never paid part of a significant €16,500 fine for mishandling Vilnius's rat extermination services. Paluckas has denied the allegations and labelled the criticism a coordinated attack by his political opponents.
Recently sanctioned by the United States, Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories, presented her latest report in the Italian Parliament. Invited by a parliamentary group made up mostly of opposition parties, she outlined an investigation that maps companies believed to be aiding Israel's occupation and its war on Gaza. Titled From Economy of Occupation to Economy of Genocide, Albanese says her work aims to explain how profit is helping drive the conflict.
Ho fatto luce col mio ultimo rapporto che mostra come 48 imprese, che poi non sono una lista, sono illustrative di un sistema, dopo aver fatto parte dell'economia e sostenuto l'economia dell'occupazione israeliana, che ha completamente deflagrato la possibilità dei palestinesi di esistere liberi come popolo in uno Stato oppure come individui che godono di diritti e libertà fondamentali. Adesso questa economia si è trasformata in genocidio, di economia di un genocidio, ed è assolutamente insopportabile l'idea che ci sia della gente che ne trae profitto.
Speaking at the Senate on Wednesday, the UN rapporteur also called out Italy, saying that defending international law should go beyond political divides.
Nel gennaio del 2024 la Corte di Giustizia internazionale, con misure d'urgenza, ha riconosciuto il rischio di genocidio e di là scattano in maniera inoppugnabile le responsabilità del governo italiano. Questo non è uno Stato come altri in Europa, non è uno Stato che è silente dinanzi a un genocidio, no? È uno Stato che è corresponsabile dal punto di vista politico.
Opposition party representatives have criticized the government for failing to support Italian-born Albanese, who was recently sanctioned by the Trump administration over a criticism of Israel.
Certo, io sono stata la prima e l'unica, spero l'ultima funzionaria internazionale a scontare questo filo, però si tratta di proprio un attacco al cuore del multilateralismo. E io dico, viste le mie origini di meridionale, conosco bene a cosa porta e cosa fa vincere appunto questa logica mafiosa, il silenzio.
Giorgia Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Dozens of elderly people died in a nursing home in Beijing after it flooded during powerful storms earlier this week, local authorities have said. The 31 deaths account for almost half of the at least 70 people who were killed when extreme weather lashed the Chinese capital and its neighboring provinces. Nearly a year's worth of rain hit the area over just a few days, and many were caught unprepared as floodwaters surged. Officials offered a rare public apology on Thursday when they announced the deaths.